gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. My brothers and my sisters, I'm gonna help them shine. My brothers and my sisters, I'm gonna help them shine. My brothers and my sisters, I'm gonna help them shine. Help them shine, help them shine, help them shine. Very nice. Give each other a hug. You did a good job.
When I first worked at Head Start, children with more serious disabilities were in a classroom all by themselves. They weren't part of the Head Start program. They were served by the school district, and the school district had a classroom, and it so happened that that classroom was here in the Head Start building. After a while, it was thought by some of the teachers, well, why don't we include these children in? And the teacher in charge of the class that had the handicapped children thought that was a good idea. And so they would go and visit for a short while.
When it initially started out as mainstreaming, that's when we just had the one room. Right. And Jean Carson, the special ed teacher, she had the room that had most of the severely handicapped students. A lot of us took the opportunity and gladly took the opportunity to go into the classroom and deal with the kids and get more comfortable with them and play with them. And we realized at that point that these kids were just the same as our own kids. And it was really a neat experience that we did get that opportunity.
Then, as one by one these children were placed in the Head Start classrooms, initially the teachers were quite concerned. Could they manage? Could they do this? Could they integrate these children into the classroom? Would they know what to do? Would they know how to help them? They had lots and lots of questions and concerns.
When they told us last year that we would be having inclusion and that there would be some kids in the class, you know, I thought to myself, can I do this? I was really wondering about that.
I was a little scared when they first told us about having special needs children last year. I'd never worked with them before.
I was a little nervous at first, but I just said, you know, I don't have the special ed background. I'm very willing to try and help and do the best I can, but, you know, I don't have that kind of background, and everybody seemed to think I could still do it, so I was, you know, more than willing to try.
And I, too, felt that, my goodness, I'm not prepared to do this. I have an early childhood education background. They didn't teach us this in college. And I felt that I should go out and get books. You know, I need to read. I need to have someone tell me, what do I do with this child?
I think all those fears, I mean, that's the only, probably the worst thing in the beginning is all the fears of what's going to happen and how it's going to be, and, you know, what are we going to do if this happens or that happens?
The Head Start people must know that they know a lot about children, but some of the children with special needs need certain training that we don't have. So we share our expertise with the people who have the expertise with special needs, and together we can come up with a fantastic program for all children. I think it is getting over that first hump of saying, we can't do it, we're not trained, we need someone else to take these children and work with them. And that really isn't true. You've got your ECSE teachers, they set up an IEP, they set up the objectives, but mostly what you're giving is the love that you give to all your preschool children.
At the beginning, honestly, I was not even going to put Calvin in preschool. I didn't think he was active enough to be in a group setting. I thought it was going to hinder the teacher having to spend more time with him, and that he wouldn't get anything out of it and the other kids wouldn't get anything out of it, and I was just all prepared to keep him home with me until kindergarten and not send him. And his team of professionals came to me and said, no, you have to give him the chance.
I was worried at first about him being accepted by the other children because he didn't talk very well or anything, and not being able to talk. I was afraid maybe he wouldn't be able to tell the teacher if something was wrong with him or if he wanted something, or and I didn't know, like I said, how the other kids would treat him. I was afraid they, you know, might pick at him or something. I just didn't know how it would work. Because he was like 25 pounds, real little. And I thought, how's he going to help himself?
When he first started school, he was in a classroom with disabled children, but then they said his is so mild that he could go into a regular classroom with the other children, and he's been doing wonderfully ever since. My main concerns was how the other children would adjust to him.
Yvonne suggested to me in May, at the end of one of the years that had not worked, where we had a self-contained classroom in a Head Start building, and we had tried to do some reverse mainstreaming things, where we had brought some Head Start kids into that self-contained classroom, and we'd tried to take some of the more disabled kids out into the Head Start classrooms, and neither one of those options worked. So basically, Yvonne came to me and said, what I really want to happen is that your ECSE teachers, your special education teachers, start teaching a Head Start classroom of their own kids. And what we will then do with all of the special needs kids is divide them amongst all of the Head Start teachers that we have in the building. And so our end result, and what has worked for us for the last 2 years, is we have 2 ECSE teachers, early childhood special education teachers, at the Head Start building. They both have Head Start classrooms with Head Start children. And then all of our special needs children are divided amongst all of the Head Start teachers. And everybody works in a collaborative manner to serve all of the children that are in the schools. The ECSE teachers have their own Head Start kids as well as special needs kids, and the Head Start teachers have their Head Start kids as well as special needs kids. And for the first time, we really felt like that we had an environment that was collaborative in nature, where there wasn't as much infighting amongst the staffs about whose responsibility is this child and whose responsibility is this child, and who's the expert on this particular topic and who's not, because everybody was working collaboratively together to serve all of the children that were in that Head Start program. You've got to decide that the most important objective that you have in mind is to serve these youngsters.
No one needs to be segregated or held back because maybe they don't work as well with their hands or their feet, or don't think as well. The way I have approached it from the first day that I met Calvin's mother is we have to see what Calvin can show us, what he's able to do. We can't really have any preconceptions about him, and I want to give him every opportunity to, fulfill his own potential. We do have to be a little extra careful about some of his health needs, and we do have some support, a facilitator who has nursing background who helps us with that. And we have to really work hard on trying to find ways sometimes to make sure that he has a part of, say, group activities. Sometimes that can be challenging. The children need to be active, and right now Calvin isn't able to be active, so we have to find ways that he can clap his hands, or the facilitator can help him do some modified movements. So he's doing new things every day. In that sense, he's no different than any other child. He needs quite a lot of help right now, but I see him as becoming more and more independent as days go by. And outside of that, though, Calvin's just a regular guy in the classroom, and that's pretty much how we approach him.
At first, I was very concerned just about making sure that he would be okay. It's gone very well. They were very curious at first. We talked about it. And then they were very helpful, almost too helpful sometimes. And then they learned that it was okay, that his feet didn't work as well as theirs, but they worked. And they worked okay. So now everybody just kind of makes sure, you okay, Cliffy? You need help? And ask them instead of being so overprotective about it. I mean, it's a challenge. It's a big challenge, and it also helps me learn how to pace my own self and not always be so, quote, concerned that they're okay. They're normal too. I'm not following him around the playground and around the room, making sure at music time I let him go, jump, do what the music say do. I'm not so concerned about him hurting us. So I'm a lot laid back.
I think that basically it happened pretty naturally in our classroom. The kids really were accepting to Crystal. We did do a little bit of explanation as far as some of the equipment that Crystal was using, as far as the walker and what some of her needs were. We had a walker that was brought in so the kids could experiment with that, so they were kind of used to using the piece of equipment that Crystal was used to using, so they could a little better understand what the walker was and the purpose of the walker. So I think that really kind of helped, just that brief explanation that we had given to the children. Do you feel that's true, Sheila?
Yep, it was a real easy transition.
Yes, we've kind of had to free the areas up when we centered the room off so that we didn't have tables sitting in places that Crystal couldn't get around. We really had to watch how we placed the furniture in the classroom, especially the smaller classrooms. It gets a little more challenging, but we were able to do that so that she could reach all of the centers and all of the areas. Initially, I think we kind of set activities up so that Crystal was paired with some of the other children. Crystal was a little shy when she initially entered the program, and so to kind of overcome some of the fears, we would set small group situations up so that she would be working with more in a one-on-one situation with the other children so that they would get more familiarized with her and kind of build relationships that way. And now she's mixing with the total group. I think we kind of started it out with a small group setting and kind of worked into working more in a full group.
I've had to broaden who I visit with and what I'm doing. Although I don't need to know specific things about specific children, I do feel that for the sake of our center, we have to get as much information as we can and get as many contacts as we can. Because eventually these children leave us and they go into the school district, and the better I know the other kindergarten teachers and the education staff in the school district, the easier that transition is then for these children. So a lot of my time is meeting with other people in the community.
Traditionally, the style was to pull the child out, take the child out for 20 to 40 minutes, and work on whatever specific goal was wanting to be accomplished. However, I found that you could do this just as well in the classroom, and by doing it in the classroom, you accomplish some more goals than you do by simply pulling the child out. First of all, the other children often need also to make advances in their speech and their language because they're preschoolers, and all preschoolers are learning still. Other children find it fascinating to work on whether it be a speech sound or whether it be a language task, sentence structure, whatever it might be, vocabulary. Other children are fascinated by words that they perhaps don't quite know yet or are eager to give explanations. You can do it in the natural setting really quite well. In fact, the advantages are that the child then learns in the setting where he's using his language. And so you don't have to do the step that was often needed in the traditional type of therapy, where you had to take the child, what the child had learned in your room, and then train him to use that in the outside world, because you are training him in his world.
I think the Head Start teachers have learned that they can work with any child that comes down the road, that they are not inferior to anyone, that they can have a child in the program and they can work with them. All they need is the assistance and consultation services of a school district who are willing to work with them. And to me, that has done a lot for the Head Start teachers who believed for a long time that they were not on equal footing to a school district. And I think once they got over that, they will perform the way they really can.
It wasn't an easy process, and it didn't happen overnight. But what we have ended up with is a program that's successful for kids, and it's very successful for not only the staff, but also the parents that are involved.
I think the inclusion is really great because if you think about years back, it seemed like they were always separated, and growing up they always felt different. And bringing them in and including them, and this inclusion makes them feel a part. I have some difficulties and some problems, but I'm a part of this community, and I think that's really great.
My uncle was handicapped. I grew up with a handicap in the family, and I think it would have been great to see that everybody has an equal chance now, because when I was a child, my uncle didn't have that chance. It was either he would live with my mother or he would have been institutionalized. So there was no choice, And I think it would have been wonderful to see that and to know, yes, changes are happening,
I was anxious, very anxious at the beginning, but once we got hands-on and now that we're rolling with this thing, I love it, because just to see them progress as quickly as they do, it's wonderful.
I think we all realized that it wasn't as hard as we thought it was going to be.
I think having them in the room with not just saying it, but having them right there, you know, because it was like, we're going to have, quote, handicapped children, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then after, you know, we got on and the children came in, it was a lot different, you know. It's like, okay. You know, at first I was following them around to make sure there was nothing, you know. And then it was like, okay, I can do this. This is okay. It was me, I think, more that I had to get okay was me. I had to find myself and say, this is going to be okay.
I just loved walking in the classroom, seeing my kid play with all these other kids and just learning how to get along with people in life. That was a thrill for me.
I think in other parents whose children are not special needs children, ones who have come into our classroom have found it exciting, because I have said, notice how your child is helping them, and they really like that.
Well, my child does have an IEP for speech, but I've seen him with the other special needs children, and he's learning to be so caring and understanding and helpful with them. I think it's great.
When you watch these kids, they're just a group of kids. I mean, they're not really singled out. They're just a group. One child's doing one thing, one child's doing another. They're helping the other child sometimes. So it's not, I don't know, I guess that's why I feel it's so important that this inclusion program work, because we're no longer, the children are no longer growing up feeling like that child is different and, you know, you stare at them every time you see them. But it's, that child is not, he's different, but he's not a, I mean, he has some problems, but he's just like the rest of, he's a part of our community.
I've often thought through the year that I think maybe one of the reasons this whole program is successful for our program is because we are not special education teachers, most of us, we don't look at a child as a child with this specific problem and that specific problem. We don't see them as something we read about in a textbook or had to do a report about. And we probably are overlooking some things sometimes with that attitude, but because we don't look for specific things and then have specific goals, the child's allowed to grow in his own way a little bit quicker.
It gives the child with the disabilities role models to follow.
This has been the best thing for him. We ran into one of his classmates at the mall the other day, and she came up to him and was talking to him and laughing with him, and he started laughing when he heard her voice. So this has been a wonderful thing for everybody, I think.
And it wasn't as big a deal as I thought it was going to be. There's enough cooperation with everybody in the center that if you can't get to him right away, there was always somebody that could help out. But what you discover is when the year starts and you start being the teacher you've been for many years, you just do what comes naturally.
The teachers have, I think, gone from being, some of them being somewhat fearful to just plugging right in there and going from acceptance to now just being very happy and glad that they can all be a part of the same class. And I think they too are realizing that all the children benefit from being together.
I'm not going to be so worried about him in the future.
I think that everybody hopes that their child grows up to be a caring individual, and they're given a chance to try that here.
You know, inclusion is the thing for him. It works great for both him and the classmates.
I think it's almost hard for us to imagine not being an inclusive program now. And sometimes you think, oh, it was easier back when we didn't have this. But yes, it may have been easier, but it wasn't as much fun, and it wasn't as exciting.
Yeah, I admit I was proven wrong on this. I thought he was one of these kids who should not be included, and I am completely wrong, and glad to be wrong.
We used to be just one little classroom in a corner of a school building, and very few people even knew we existed. And now we're attending meetings and doing lots of interchanges with programs and inviting kindergarten teachers here. We go to their classes, and that never used to happen.
For all the children, I think to grow up beginning this way is a wonderful beginning to perhaps an eventual end that we can all live together in one world and we can all be a part of making it work.
Little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. My brothers and my sisters, I'm gonna help them shine. My brothers brothers and my sisters, I'm gonna help them shine. My brothers and my sisters, I'm gonna help them shine. Help them shine, help them shine, help them shine.
He said, when I say, Andrew said, little Andrew said, Tony. He said, Tony.
You did? How did you help Andrew learn to talk?
Easy.
How? What did you do?
I said, Andrew say, Tony, and say, Antonio. Me and little Andrew play in the house area.
How come you call him Little Andrew?
Cause it's this small.
Oh, he's a little bit small?
He goes on vacation with me.
He does?
Yeah.
What else?
I play with you, right, Andrew?
And you help me teach you how to talk?
I teach you how to talk, right, you? And little Andrew?
Oh, let's hold the microphone. Want to say hi in there? Say hi.
Hi.
All right.
Hi. Andrew, what'd you like to do? What'd you like to do? What'd you like to do, little Andrew?